Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, July the 11th, 2018, show number 1181. I'm your host, Shawn King, joined as always by my lovely wife, Melissa.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
We had such a productive week. We got to tell you guys about it. But first up, I want to let you know that late on the show, as always, we'll talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. We'll talk to him about industrial espionage. I don't know if you saw this story, but a Apple employee was caught at the San Jose airport fleeing the country to China. And apparently he had a whole bunch of company secrets he was going to give to his new employer, a Chinese autonomous car manufacturer. So that's a fascinating story. Very, very cool. And we'll also talk to Jim about the 10-year anniversary of the App Store. Are you guys still using the App Store? I mean, I know it's the only way to get stuff on your phone now. Is it still of value to you? Do you still research things through the Apple Store? Do you still find things through the Apple Store? Let me know. Send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Be curious to know how you folks are using the App Store and whether it's still got any real value for you. In our starting point photography segment, we're talking about editing and how much editing is too much editing. Melissa and I had a great conversation this morning, and I want to get her thoughts on what she feels is too much editing and where that line is when it comes to editing your photos. Because as I said, I've always said to people in the starting point photography classes, editing is half the photography. Now, it's not just pointing the camera and shooting at things, but the edit afterwards is very, very important. So we'll talk to you guys about that. We have spent probably, how many hours do you think that little project outside has taken up?
Oh.
Maybe 10, I think, I'd say.
At least.
And even that's it didn't need to take 10 hours. What we're talking about is, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, you'll see Melissa and I yesterday finally finished up our cinder block bench. We had a bunch of old building material. That stuff was there before when you moved in more than a year ago, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It was just scrap for whatever reason.
Well, a part of it was the structure on the back of the house.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these old cinder blocks and old used old wood, old ratty wood.
Oh, yeah, wood that had been in the structure, and there's cinder blocks around the yard in garden beds that I don't want them anymore. They're awful.
And so I think about 3 months ago, we decided we were going to do something about this stuff. And I had seen some YouTube videos on cinder block fireplaces and cinder block benches and cinder block the garden. Because the original idea was we're going to make garden, what do you call those things you put plants in?
Garden beds.
Beds? Is that it?
Yeah.
What's the container the bed is in? There's a word for it, isn't there? Planter. Thank you, Monty. Planter.
Oh, thank goodness for Monty.
Exactly. We were thinking about making because our garden planter that's already out there is all old, rotten. It's falling apart. It just kind of,
well, the deer keep jumping.
Jumping on it. So I thought, well, let's do this. And then Melissa had the idea of maybe doing a cinder block fireplace. I did that research on YouTube, and then we thought, well, what about a bench? And so we went through these old cinder blocks. There's probably 50, 60 cinder blocks. And we found the ones that we wanted. We went through the old wood. When I rented the chainsaw, I guess 2 weeks ago, I cut off the ends of the rotten ends of the wood. Because the wood wasn't bad. It was old and weathered and beat up, but it wasn't rotten all the way. At least the pieces we picked weren't rotten all the way through. They could still support weight. And so this is where things get interesting. I am mechanically incompetent. I've been a city kid my entire life. I don't use power tools. They scare me. But I also don't know anything about do-it-yourself stuff. I don't know anything about woodworking or cinder blocks or how to glue stuff together or any of that stuff. And I don't think you know much about it either, right?
Not a whole bunch, no.
So where this became interesting was now, before the internet, those cinder blocks would have gotten thrown away. Or they would have just stayed in a corner gathering dirt and dust. But now with the internet, I just did a YouTube search on cinder block benches, cinder block fire pits. And there's a bunch of videos up there. And as most videos on YouTube, 95% of them were just crap. You'd watch them for 3 seconds and go, no, I don't want to listen to you. But you can find some nuggets in the chaff, wheat in the chaff. And I found a couple that were easily understood and made sense. And one of the problems that you have to watch out for when you get YouTube advice or any internet advice is, does that person know what they're talking about? You know, that's the scary part for me is, for example, if someone said, you watch this YouTube video for how to change the valves on your motorcycle, I'd be going, no, because I don't know enough about it to know if he's saying the right thing or not. But you don't have no idea if this backyard guy knows anything about what he's actually talking about. But cinder blocks is kind of obvious. You watch the videos, you know who it is. And so we watch the videos, and hey, look, we have enough cinder blocks to do this. We have enough wood to do this. We went to our local home hardware type store, Rona, got some advice of what do you use to, glue cinder blocks together. We got some advice on what to do with this old wood. We rented a belt saw. First thing we did was we mocked it up. Mm-hmm. We put it together as we thought it would. We put the wood in. We said, hey, this looks kind of nice like this. Then cut the wood to the right length. And then we went to local rental place and rented a belt sander, and that was easy to use. It was just, no big deal. And the would look pretty good.
He was making that sound while he
I
was.
Well, when you're doing belt sander, you got to go. Doesn't everyone do that? Is it just me that makes belt sander noises? So once we sanded off the top, I guess like 1/8 of an inch of the wood looked pretty good underneath it.
Yeah, it did. It was exciting.
And then Melissa had this beautiful stain, this redwood stain that she'd used on her yoga studio to trim up the yoga studio. So we painted or stained this wood with these things. And then we put it together. We used this glue. I don't know if it's epoxy or...
Don't you have a picture?
No, people can see it on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is. It's all over the place. And it looks really good.
It does. It's amazing.
There weren't any real problems. The only issue is because the holes of the cinder block are a specific size, to get the wood through, we kind of scrape it against the cinder block. And so it roughed up some of the painting that we had done. So all we have to do is just go back and touch it up. But gluing the blocks was no big deal. It was this PL 9000 cement stuff. I don't know. It's fairly solid now. This is what, yesterday? It was the day before.
Yesterday.
Was it yesterday? It's supposed to cure for 7 days, but it's fairly solid now. But it looks really nice. I was very impressed with it.
It looks like a professional park bench.
And then what we're going to do is attach when we go to Florence and Lisbon, because the cinder blocks aren't attractive, and we couldn't find anything to paint. We can't see any kind of paint.
No, I don't want to paint them.
Maybe white.
No. Ugh.
Yeah.
No. But if I lived in Greece or something, somewhere hot.
Monty says you sanded off the patina and got back to the natural wood color, then stained it. Exactly. That's what we did.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no paint color that goes with that redwood that you picked that would look good in that situation. So what we're going to do is on the back of the cinder blocks is, as we travel in Florence and Lisbon, we look for tiles.
Yeah. We'll get some tiles from the flea markets and stuff there.
Lisbon is famous for its azulejos, these beautiful, beautiful tiling. It's all over the city and buildings all over the city. They have a national tile museum. It's sold in flea markets and in stores and that kind of stuff, touristy places. So we're going to look for 10 or 20 of those and glue those to the back of the cinder blocks to sort of pretty them up.
Yeah.
And then Melissa had a great idea of putting plants in the holes in the cinder blocks. On the sides of the bench, the cinder block holes are still open. And so you thought we were going to put in, you know what kind of plants? Just like succulents or?
Like they do on the side of green walls and buildings, just plants that will grow down and cover up the cinder block. It'll look beautiful.
I think in a few years, if and when that cinder block is covered in vines or plants, it's going to look amazing.
I know.
You're going to have this bench with this wonderful wood slats on it, and then the tiles on the back. But then the cinder block aspect of it will be covered up by these plants. I think it's going to look
pretty nice.
Fantastic.
And that's for our fire. We have our fire pit in front of it.
The next thing is we're going to either build a fire pit or we're just going to buy one of those big circular ones and put a fire pit in there. So we'll see if Monty says there are several colors you could paint the blocks that would look good, I think, but that's a personal preference. We couldn't find any, Monty. We couldn't see anything that
they didn't have a lot of choices.
Yes, we're in a small town, so I can't even think of colors that would go well. Monty, if you have color choices in mind, let us know. You can always say it in the chat room or email us. Bright sky blue.
Bright sky blue.
I don't know if that would go with that red.
I don't think it would. Think of another one.
Keep going. Later on in the show, we're going to talk about editing your photographs. How far is too far when it comes to editing a photo? And is there a line you can't step over? We'll talk about that in the Starting Point Photography segment. We'll also talk more about our Lisbon trip. But up next, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about industrial espionage and all kinds of other fun stuff. This is your Mac Life. All right, Mike's coming up. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining us here on the show this evening. In our phone room, as always, we have a good friend, Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing? What are you doing? Are you in the bathroom?
No, I'm washing a pot.
Well, it is after dinner time, so that kind of makes sense.
I'm trying to make some supper.
What you making tonight?
Just some
little hobo stew.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. A little hobo stew.
Ain't nothing wrong with a good hobo stew, man. That's all.
The only thing that's fresh is the onion that I got. The rest of it's like roadkill.
Yeah. Jim very kindly had me on his podcast this morning, the Dalrymple Report. It'll be available up probably sometime tomorrow. It's also available in the iTunes Store. You can subscribe to it on the iTunes Store. Just do a search for Dalrymple Report, and it will pop up. We had this great conversation about this industrial espionage thing. This is the most bizarre, wild story that I have seen in a long time. And now as I read more about it, there's even more details coming up. Turns out, Jim, since this morning, I found out something about this guy. He's incredibly stupid. He is really, really dumb. When Zhang turned in his 2 company-issued iPhones and his laptop, Apple's tech security team reviewed the history on his devices and found that his download activity increased dramatically and included information from confidential files. Zhang generated 581 rows of user activity. On April 28th alone, the previous month, he had only generated about 600 of them. Security cameras also caught Zhang in the software and hardware labs during his paternity leave, contrary to corporate policy. According to the complaint, Zhang initially denied to Apple security being on campus during his leave.
What a moron.
The guy just kept doing dumb shit over and over and over again.
And remember what I read you today. He walked out of the lab, out of the hardware lab, with a server.
That's right, with a server under his arm.
Wow.
Yeah, as Mosquito says, oh, this guy, where'd Apple find him in the first place? Yeah, it's starting to seem like Apple, your hiring practices, how did you not find out this guy was a moron when you hired him?
No, I think that's wrong, because he's probably an incredibly smart person.
Yep.
When it comes to circuit boards and stuff like that. He's just dumb.
He's just a bad spy. That's right.
Now, if you or I were in there, we wouldn't be able to build the circuit board, but I guarantee I'd get out of there with more than one server.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's you'd think that, well, and you know what, part of it is probably we've all watched far too many movies, but you'd think that his handlers would have trained him how to do this properly, or at least his life experience would have shown him how to do this properly. That you wouldn't.
They wouldn't find shit on my phone.
Exactly. Matter of fact, I'm sorry, my phone fell in the toilet. I flushed it. I'm so very sorry. Here's $1,000 to pay for my company-issued phone.
Yeah.
I'm not giving these guys back my company-issued phone.
Yeah, that's just, wow.
If you've used the company's products to do illicit things, don't give those products back, you dumbass.
And then all of a sudden he books a trip to China.
Well, that was the thing. It was like a day. He bought the ticket the day of. No one buys a ticket day of to go to a place like China.
Nobody.
Maybe if you're going to L.A., but not to China.
No.
He informed Apple upon his return to work after paternity leave that he'd be leaving the company to go back to China because his mother was ill, which is okay. He also told his supervisor he'd be going to work for X Motors, a Chinese company focused on electronic automobiles and driverless vehicle technology.
Oh, but they had nothing to do with it.
What are you doing, you idiot? You don't tell the Apple guys, oh, by the way, I'm going to work for the competition.
Yeah, they had nothing to do with it, though. They said so in a press release.
Well, and, they very well might not have. I don't believe that for a second. I think that's the first thing that, even if you're guilty, innocent or guilty, it's the first thing you say. We had nothing to do with it. Yeah. But I don't believe them. It may never get proven, but I don't believe for a second that the company did not have something to do with this.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with you.
We talked about that in the Dalrymple report. Do you think this will have a good chilling effect on industrial espionage, or do you think people are so arrogant they will say to themselves, well, I can still do this, I'm smarter than that guy?
This has been going on for forever, since, the Roman times, everything, it's been going on. So, no, it's going to continue to go on. Do you know what?
What?
Right after I left you, I went to watch the World Cup England match.
No, don't tell me the score. Don't tell me the score. Don't tell me the score. Don't tell me the score.
I won't tell you the score. But I'm just saying, from the time I left you this morning, I started drinking and haven't stopped.
But that doesn't actually surprise anybody. That is not news.
Well, I thought it could be.
Are you a soccer fan?
I am.
Are you a fair weather soccer fan once every 4 years, or do you watch it?
No.
That's right, you do. You watch English Premier League, don't you?
I do. Although I don't really like the Premier League much anymore, I like Division 1.
Okay.
Because the Premier League, they fall down and roll around too much.
They really do, don't they? Who's your team?
Well, since I was a wee lad, I've liked Manchester United.
Oh, that's the only thing you and I have in common.
So I could. Okay, well, I like Liverpool. No, I've liked Manchester United. My parents liked Manchester United since I was a small kid.
Yeah, same with my stepdad was lived in Manchester, so I've been a United fan since I was a kid.
And I went to see a couple games over there, at Old Trafford, so that was good. Anyway,
get
back? I'm just saying that I've been on the bottle since.
So did you watch the Mexico-Sweden game?
Mexico-Sweden?
Yes, it was weeks ago. I was telling the audience this. The Mexico-Sweden game was the first time I saw social media live on TV. It was really interesting because Mexico-Sweden, the Mexicans needed South Korea to beat Germany, and the South Korean game was going on at the same time as the Mexico-Sweden game on. It was really interesting watching it on TV. I was mentioning this to the audience earlier. I don't know. I was asking to see if you noticed it. So the fans obviously all have their social media. They have their phone apps. They have all this technology in their hands, and they're watching almost live the South Korea-Germany game, knowing that they need South Korea to beat Germany in order for Mexico to go ahead. And it was really interesting watching live social media on TV because the fans were cheering their phones as much as they were cheering Mexico-Sweden. It was a fascinating example of live social media.
See, if anything, when I'm watching a game, I am not on social media.
Yeah.
I may be working and writing, but just simple posts to get on the site, but I'm not on social media at all.
No.
Because I want to watch the game. So today, an English friend in the area, he's from London. He texted me and said, "Hey, I'm going to go up to our local pub and watch the game." And it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and I said, "Okay, I'll come up." So it's going to be empty. But I got there, place was packed.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
So there wasn't like an English-speaking person there. They were all either Croatian or British.
That's right.
Or the regular alcoholics.
Yeah.
That are normally there. So it was hilarious. I stroll in and I know some of the regulars there, and they were like, "Oh, what are you doing here so early?" I'm watching the soccer game, and I just got off the phone with Shawn, so I needed to drink.
You need a drink, of course. Yeah, so did I.
Yeah.
It's interesting for me because I don't have cable TV. I have to get the games on tape delay and in illicit means, so I'm still weeks behind. But I love watching it. But that was the first example I saw of the 21st century technology, social media affecting the TV viewing of a game. I'm the same as you. I'm not on social media when I'm watching my sporting events. I want to watch them, sit down with a beer in my hand and actually watch the event or work or whatever it might be. But it was very interesting. The Apple last week posted an interesting story. We posted it up on the Loop at loopinsight.com about this being the 10th anniversary of the App Store, which is a really interesting aspect of Apple, not necessarily in a good way either. Over the years, what are your feelings about the App Store? Is it still of use to you? Is it still something you use? I remember first, when the App Store first opened up, you downloaded everything. It was like when iTunes came out, you just bought and downloaded everything. Yeah. Now I find myself very, very rarely going to the App Store at all.
Well, I think part of the problem with the App Store is just volume. But I think the new version of the App Store is a lot better in telling you what is good and cool. So most of what I download from the App Store is either out of immediate necessity.
Yes.
Or something that friends recommend.
Yes.
But I am finding more now that there are some cool apps that the App Store is picking out and shows me on the Today tab.
Yes.
That I find interesting.
Yep.
There's some apps that I don't download, but I read the stories because they're interesting. Like there's like live detective type apps.
Yep.
I never knew that those even existed, but here are these detective apps. So there's some cool stuff on there that I don't know. That are there, and I don't know because I don't visit, but then I do visit, so.
I find the App Store infinitely frustrating because I don't want to scroll through those things on my phone. I want to see it on the computer. Apple made that change, I guess, about a year ago now, where you can't access the iOS App Store via your Macintosh. You've got to access it via your iOS device, and that, to me, almost completely killed any ability for me to explore or desire to explore the App Store. Before, I could go into a category and just scroll through a bunch of apps and read some reviews and go to the website and check things out that way. I don't do that at all anymore. I do the same thing you do. When I go to the App Store because I need to update some apps, a little red line, little red circle there says you've got 100 apps to update. I'll go to the Today tab, and I'm very much like you. It's like, oh, that looks interesting. I might not buy it. I might not download it, but there's an interesting story. But I no longer scroll through long lists of apps trying to find things. I think that's true. Go ahead.
You know what I wish that they had on the Update tab? Delete.
Oh, God. Why? Why, Apple? Why? Why can't we delete stuff from the Update tab? That's so frustrating.
Because there's apps on there that I haven't. I look at it and say, "What? I have that app."
Yep, I don't remember that.
I want to delete it right then and there.
Yep.
But it won't let you. So that if I had one wish for the App Store, that would be it.
And then because so many of us have hundreds of apps on our phone and we may or may not have organized them properly, I'll see this app on my phone and think, I don't want that app anymore. But to get rid of it, I have to then go back. I have to go get out of the app and then start scrolling through 15 different screens to find the damn app that I want to delete. It might be in a folder somewhere, and I got to go scroll through the folder. No, Apple, just let us delete stuff from the App Store.
So you know how I take photos?
Badly?
That's what my screen looks like for apps. So even if I went out, I just update them all because even if I went out and looked for the app, I would never be able to find it.
Yeah. But I don't hit update all anymore because I've been burned by too many apps who significantly changed the way they work or how much they cost or their functionality. That really pisses me off. And I go to use the app again, all of a sudden I'm thrown into this new screen or this new interface or now you got to pay me kind of stuff. That I just don't do that anymore. I only update apps that I know what the update is going to be and that it's not going to be a significant change in the app that I'm not going to like.
Well, no wonder you have 100 apps to update.
Yeah, exactly. Monty says 142. I've got 137 apps that I haven't updated on my phone.
Holy shit.
And that I won't click update all just because I've been burned so many times. So screw that stuff.
Wow, you guys need help.
Yeah, we really do. I think Sly's worse. I think Sly's got us all beat. She's up closer to 200 than she is to 100. So,
wow,
she's really sick.
You guys definitely need help.
But I'm also the same as you when it comes to the only time I go to the App Store unbidden is when I've read a review from somewhere. I've seen someone on Twitter say, I really like this app. Here's a link to it. Or I read a review on a website.
There's very few people that I even trust reviews on anymore.
Really?
Because we know that reviews are paid for.
True.
So, I mean, if I want something developer, graphic, whatever, I may give Gruber a call and say, hey, what do you like in this area?
Yeah.
If I want something photography, I'll give you a call and say, hey, what do you like in this area? if it's something generic, I may say, on Twitter, what do you guys like?
Sure.
But if it's an emergency where I actually need something right now,
yep,
I'll go on and I'll just buy whatever's there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it comes from friends.
And it's funny, you hear people say all the time, what's the big deal? Just buy the app. Why do I have to, read the reviews and check things out? It's not just that easy. If every app is even $1, I've got 400 photography apps on my phone. That's $400 minimum. If I was just going to buy these apps willy-nilly, I can't do that anymore. I can't afford to do that anymore.
I say again, you have a problem.
I do have a problem. I do.
You and Monty.
Well,
I'm willing to bet Mo too.
That's right, Mo probably too.
I'm just throwing that out there. I'm willing to bet that he's got a problem as well.
Sly wants to defend herself and says she only has 141 apps that need updating.
Yeah. After she just pressed update all.
It is interesting how we find.
Where's Sly?
Sly's in Vancouver. We all miss Sly. I wish Sly would be on the show more, but she won't.
I miss Sly.
Yeah. It is interesting how we are discovering apps now, and I don't know if there's any way Apple can solve that problem anymore. I think the App Store has gotten too big for people who don't want to sit there on their phone scrolling through 15, 20, 30 apps to find the right app. I'd much rather trust somebody or Twitter or a review site that I trust. As much as I slam them, iMore and other websites that can write good reviews that I'll trust. DP Review is a website I trust to tell me about apps and that kind of stuff. But
that's a bit different though. But is there any website that you trust for app reviews?
Implicitly, no. I'm suspicious of all of them. Even back in the good old days, Macworld was someplace you could trust, but now no, I don't trust them implicitly. I trust them to be well written and to give me information about the app, but I don't believe. iMore again is the worst of the worst when it comes to this kind of stuff. I like the way they write about the things, but every single link they have is to an affiliate site somewhere, usually Amazon, and that makes me mistrust the review. When iMore says, "Hey, these are the 5 best, or these are the 10 best Apple wireless chargers," they're all linked to Amazon. My thought is, these are the 10 best you could find on Amazon.
Well, I think out of all of them, as a person, I trust Rene.
Yes.
And there are a couple of others there that, as people, I trust. But yeah, I get what you're saying about the whole review.
Yeah, it just makes me suspicious when you never link to the company's website. Your links are only to where you can make money off them. Even like on the Loop, when we link to a company's website, it's in the headline of the story. You can go right to their website, go right to their story in the headline. If we have affiliate links, and we rarely ever do, it's going to be in the body of the text. And at least when I post them, it says affiliate link right next to it. And iMore doesn't even do that. So I'll use their reviews as a way of learning more about the subject, but not as a trustworthy source.
To be fair, that's the way that most people do it now. So,
that's what they're supposed to do.
No, like iMore does. And I like Rene. I like what they do over there. So, I also get, as you do, the need to be able to generate some revenue.
Sure.
Sure. But I just want to be able to trust somebody. I've called Rene plenty of times and said, "Hey, I need an app. What do you like?"
Yep.
So
on this,
he doesn't say, go visit the website and download this thing from our affiliate link.
Yes.
He tells me what he likes. So
on this day in 2008, the App Store launched. App Store sales in 2008 were $206 million. App Store sales in 2017, $38.5 billion.
Yeah, bit of a difference.
Apple is making money hand over fist, not only for themselves, but also for the developers. Remember, 70% of that $38.5 billion goes to developers. Now, developers will have quibbles about how they get it and Apple's process, but that's got to be the single most important way for the vast majority of iOS developers of getting their apps out there, getting them noticed.
Absolutely.
And it's really hard for them to get noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
And I have no idea what the solution is.
Well, I don't think anybody knows what the solution is. I mean, app developers are moving to, Facebook and Google advertising, and there's all kinds of ways that people are trying to get their app noticed. And I don't know what the solution is either.
Yeah.
But it's got to be out there.
Because we all know all kinds of, you go to WWDC, you meet them, I meet them on Twitter or online. There are hundreds and hundreds of small developers out there making really cool little apps that just can't get any attention either from the media or from Apple to get promoted on the site. They don't have the budget to do a big marketing campaign to get noticed, and they're just trying to find a way. And unfortunately, exploration of the App Store is not the way for them to get noticed anymore.
No, it's true. Absolutely. Absolutely, it's true. And I really don't know what to tell them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How do you fix that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's an intractable problem. I don't think it's a problem that anybody can fix. Like I said, I think it's because the App Store has gotten too big for anyone to manage anyway. It's for the users. There's too many apps in the categories. There are literally thousands and thousands of camera apps. There are hundreds of text editing apps. There are thousands of games, hundreds of thousands of games of varying levels of quality. You cannot find a needle in that haystack. It's not possible anymore to do it. And after a while, people just give up. You think, start scrolling through, and then you quickly give up.
See, my problem is that I don't play games on iOS or Mac.
Yep.
And a lot of the focus is on games.
Yeah.
So, what am I supposed to do? I go into the App Store and I look and think, well, how am I even supposed to find what's cool?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to play a game. So,
Jason Heiner over at CNET did a story, and we posted this up on The Loop at loopinsight.com. The 10 most important iPhone apps of all time. Did you read this story? Jim?
Yes.
Did I lose you?
No.
Oh, your audio got better. Did you read the story of the 10 most important apps of all time?
I saw that.
Did you read it?
No.
Okay. His list is, and I like Jason. I've known Jason for years as an acquaintance. He's not a friend or anything like that, but he seems to be a nice guy. This must be one of the most awful lists I've ever seen. It's really weird. Number 10, he says TripIt. TripIt is one of the most important iPhone apps of all time. Really?
No.
Not even close. Fortnite.
Thanks for playing the game.
Fortnite, one of the 10 most important apps of all time. No, it's not. It's a game. It's not important.
Maybe for gamers.
Yes, but he's talking for everybody. Evernote. Now, Evernote was, I don't know if it any longer is, was a really cool app, but important? Duolingo, Pokemon Go, Flipboard.
Well, Pokemon Go may have been one of the most popular for a time.
Yes, but it certainly wouldn't be considered important. At least I certainly wouldn't consider it important.
Right. I agree with you.
It only comes into number 4 that I would agree important, and not necessarily in a good way. Instagram.
Well, yeah.
I think you could argue that Instagram is an important app, even if you don't like it, even if you don't like anything involved with it. It certainly can be considered important. And number 1 and number 2 are Google Maps and Tweety. Now, Tweety is long dead, but it certainly was important of its time. And Google Maps,
yes, it was,
definitely is still important.
Well, I mean, Tweety was hugely important
absolutely.
in its time. But then again, so was Google Maps.
I think Google Maps is still important.
Of course it is. Well, the fact that 5,000 developers cheered at the WDC keynote when they found out that they didn't have to use Google Maps and CarPlay or use Apple Maps and CarPlay anymore.
Yeah.
That says all you need to know right there.
That's right. We talked about that on the Dalrymple report this morning.
Yeah,
and it was just funny. I'm sure, as you said on the Dalrymple report, you've got a couple hundred Apple Map developers going, "Oh man, you assholes!" You know.
Yep. I mean, people cheered loudly.
That's right.
Because you didn't have to use Apple Maps in CarPlay. You could now use third-party apps.
Yep.
And they cheered. And this is at Apple's own event.
That's right.
I mean, come on.
You got to think that was a huge slap in the face.
I mean, did that not want to make them cry?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No kidding. That's got to be incredibly disillusioning for those poor guys to have people cheering your product in such a vehement kind of way.
Well,
I felt bad for them.
I felt bad for them. I was sitting there. I mean, this is right after I'm on the screen.
Yep.
You know, in that thing that they did, and then they say, "Oh, and you CarPlay, you don't have to use Apple Maps anymore," and people are cheering, and I'm thinking, "Holy shit!" You know.
Dear.
This is bad.
This is bad. This is not good. This is very, very bad. The when will you get a Dalrymple report up and posted?
Oh, probably tomorrow when I sober up.
I just say, you seem awful lackadaisical about that, dude.
Well, you know, I mean, come on. Come on.
You're definitely not one of those podcasters that agonizes over the podcast and says, I have to get it up. I have to.
Let's talk about the Canon Coolpix.
Oh, that you can see, folks. I don't know if you've seen this one. Again, it's up on the Loop at loopinsight.com. Canon has announced a new called a compact camera. It's not as big as a DSLR. The lenses don't change on it, but it's not as small as a little point and shoot. So it's kind of caught in the middle between those two things. But the zoom on this thing is freaking unbelievable.
I want it.
You want this?
I want it.
You just found your new camera, and like we said, it's a very specific.
I don't even like cameras, and I want it.
It's got a very specific use to it. It's not the kind of thing that you just buy willy nilly. It's not something that you would buy just as your next camera. But if you haven't seen the video, for you folks who are watching us on the live version, on the video. You got to see this. The zoom on this thing is a 24 millimeter to 3000, and when the video opens up, you can't even see the freaking lion under the tree, and then the video zooms in.
I want it.
It's a 4K video of this lion staring you right in the eyes. You can see the battle scar in the lion's face. This thing is terrifying.
I could only watch it twice because he scared the hell out of me.
That's right.
I want that camera. If I ever buy a camera, I don't care what comes next. I want that camera.
That's kind of the reason why Nikon brought this thing to market, was the fact that it is caught in between a rock and a hard place of a point and shoot and a DSLR, but there's no DSLR in the world that can compete with a zoom of that level. There's nothing out there that can zoom to the degree of one of these compact cameras. They're pretty incredible.
What was it, 3,000?
3,000, yeah. So if
okay, just as comparison, what's my iPhone? So
your iPhone's maybe 100 millimeters, and this is 3,000 millimeters.
There's a bit of a difference.
A little bit of a difference. Oh, by the way, before I let you go, have you read this story? A massive black sarcophagus has been unearthed in Egypt, and nobody knows what's inside.
I saw that. And
don't open this. Do not open this.
Just to be clear, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. I'm staying.
With the state of the world today, don't open that sarcophagus, man.
Don't open a black sarcophagus. No.
I'm sorry. Haven't you seen the movies?
Bad idea.
Bad. Such a bad idea.
The only way that I would open that sarcophagus is if The Rock was with me. That's it. And Harrison Ford.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Other than that, I'm not opening shit.
There is no chance of my opening. Do I want to open that sarcophagus? Just fill it in full of concrete right now. We don't need to know.
No.
I'm sorry, the world's gone to hell in a handbasket already, and you're just tempting fate, opening up a giant black sarcophagus. That would be the scariest thing. Literally, that would creep me out nowadays.
Yeah.
Just because the world's in such a weird place that God only knows what the hell would be in that thing. Probably nothing, but let's not take the chance.
Let's not. Well, it's a 3,000-year-old black sarcophagus.
Yeah.
There's something in there.
There's something in there. It's been sealed.
And there's no way I want to find out what.
You don't want to be there.
I mean, look at the people that opened up King Tut's tomb.
That's right.
They all died.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So, they were all healthy, great people. They were friendly, liked to go out for a beer.
Yep.
And then they died.
They died.
Just because they opened up King Tut's tomb. And now you're going to open up a black sarcophagus?
Yeah, just don't. No. Please, I'm begging you. Just don't.
Don't.
It will bring on the end times. The another story that ran around social media. I don't know if you had a chance to see this one over the weekend. There was this, not interesting, but I followed people's reaction to it. So a woman's on a plane. Her and her boyfriend or husband asked someone, would they please change seats so that the husband and boyfriend could sit together. Mm-hmm. And they change seats in front of them so they can see. So now it's a very attractive young man, a very attractive young woman. And the woman is tweeting all of this, like live stuff. And she's tweeting how these people are getting to know each other. She's tweeting that they've introduced themselves and that they're both fitness instructors and they're getting along great. The woman is thinking, oh, this is kind of cute. There's a little budding romance going on here. This is kind of sweet. And she's tweeting all this stuff. And the tweets go on for hours and hours and hours because she's on a plane. She's bored. They get off the plane, and she kind of follows them down the gangway, taking pictures and, again, tweeting and that kind of stuff, seemingly quite innocent. But this has blown up on social media. Have you followed this?
No.
People are getting very, very upset at the woman who tweeted this stuff. And the reasons why are very interesting. That she has made this couple, these formerly two strangers, she's kind of invaded their privacy and put their lives on social media in a way that they may not want it to be.
I can see that.
It's different when you post your own selfie. But when you post the life story of somebody else on social media, then it becomes a whole different thing. Now, to be clear, as I say in my photography classes, if you're in a public place, you can take pictures of public things. So I can take a picture of you sitting under the bridge and post that picture on social media. Not a problem.
That would be a disappointing picture.
It would definitely be disappointing, but there is that aspect of, am I invading your privacy? Well, no, you're in a public place. These folks weren't in a public place. They may have had some expectation of privacy.
How?
Well,
they were on an airplane.
Yes, but you got to agree that an airplane is not public space. Public space is space anybody can go to. All right? The inside of an airplane, not anybody can go to. You have to pay to get on there. You have to pass through security. You have to be allowed in this private space. That space is owned by the airline.
Like the ex-Apple employee, he tried to get on an airplane.
That's right, exactly. Monty says they were on an airplane. It's not behind a locked door. It is behind a locked door. It's very much behind a locked door. You are literally behind a locked door on a plane.
But you can't expect. There's no expectation of privacy on an airplane.
There is an expectation of it. There absolutely is.
No, there is not.
Whether that expectation applies in this case is something that is up for debate. But the law says you can expect a level of privacy in any private place. That's why I can't. So let's just say that you're in your backyard. Monty's in his backyard and he's suntanning naked, and he's behind a fence. He's behind a wall, a fence. I am not allowed to lift my camera up over his fence and shoot pictures of him, because he expects to be in a private place. You understand that?
Look, I'm not 6. I get what you're saying. I'm saying that there's no expectation of privacy on an airplane.
There is. The law would say there is. That is a private space. The public is not allowed to go on that airplane. It is an object owned by a company, and as soon as the company owns a product, space, that's a private space. People will often say, well, the pub you go to, Jim, is a public space because anybody can walk in the door. In fact, the pub that you go to is a private space, and you have an expectation of privacy in a private space.
No.
You do.
No,
you absolutely do.
I don't agree.
Well, does that matter? Do you agree or not? That's the law.
I don't have to pay to get in there.
No, but it's still a private space. That's why, all right, here. Next time you go to your local pub, start taking pictures and video of the staff and see if they ask you to stop.
No, well, they won't.
Is Starbucks a public or private place?
It's a public place.
Go into Starbucks and take a picture of your barista. They will stop you and ask you not to take pictures.
Bullshit.
No, I'm serious. They will. Go into your local supermarket.
I'm going to do it.
Your supermarket, please. Your supermarket is a. You think it's a public space, right? Go ahead and take pictures in your supermarket, and a manager will come over and ask you to stop taking pictures.
No, we won't.
Yes, he will. I promise you.
Nobody ever asked me to stop doing anything.
You can walk into a mall and start taking pictures of the stores, and a mall cop will come up to you at some point and ask you to stop taking pictures. And he's legally allowed to do that because those are considered private spaces. Not private spaces in the sense of your bedroom or your bathroom, but private spaces in the sense of the legality of that space.
I don't think that you have any expectation of privacy in any of those places except the bedroom that you mentioned.
The law has told us that you have an expectation of privacy in private spaces. And your home is a private space. Starbucks is a private space. The mall is a private space.
No,
because
it's
they're
not.
owned by... Yes, they are. They're not owned by the public. They're owned by a private entity who can dictate how that space is being used.
See, now you're just pissing me off.
Hey, you said you wanted to stay long, so I figured I'd throw this at you.
But this isn't right. I mean, what you're saying is just not right.
It is right. There's nothing wrong with having the idea of private spaces are different from public spaces.
Yeah, but you're lying.
I'm not. Go ahead, yell fake news. I dare you. Just go ahead. You're lying.
Come on. I don't just outright. I mean, Monty doesn't agree with you. Ask Monty. Ask Monty if he agrees with you or me.
MacMan says it is private property.
I didn't say MacMan.
I know. I'm just waiting. Monty says Shawn is correct in that a mall or Starbucks is a private space.
I don't care what anybody
Oh,
ask somebody
dear.
that agrees with
You
you.
ask someone that agrees with you. That's right, exactly.
Ask Mo. Where's Mo? Jeez.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of folks don't realize what they are allowed and not allowed to do when it comes to private spaces versus public space and what constitutes a private space. A bar is definitely considered not public property. It is a private space. And the bar owner, they'll have a sign somewhere. We reserve the right to refuse service to anybody. That's because that's a private space.
I've seen that.
Yep. And what that means is that you're now in a private space, and the owner of that space, the controller of that space, has the right to do what they want you to do in that space.
Come on, though. Do you really expect any form of privacy when you go to a bar?
Well, remember the stories, and this was now 3-4 years ago, you and I talked about this, of the Google Glass, where somebody got assaulted in a pub because they had Google Glass on and they were recording the pub.
Deserved it.
Whether they deserved it or not, it's not exactly the point. The point was they were recording in a private space, and they would not stop recording when asked to stop. If they were in public, if they were just walking down the street, people could not legally have a problem with their Google Glass recording that interaction. But because it was a private space, it was a bar, and they were recording, people got upset about it.
Yeah, but anybody that comes at me with Google Glass, they deserve.
No, I don't disagree with you on that. I was hoping Google Glass would take off so we could have that fight.
Yeah.
Because I know if you got Google Glass on, you're a nerd and you don't know how to punch.
Right.
Yeah, I'd just take your ass out. Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with doing that. But that's
I wouldn't even have to look at it.
That's right, exactly. But it's an interesting idea where this story, and I'm going to post this on the Loop tomorrow, maybe a little later tonight, about how your social interactions can affect other people. Your cute little story that you think is fun and, you're bored on a plane, so I'm going to tell the story of the people around me, whether that through video or audio or pictures or whatever it might be, may be invading their privacy.
Okay, so let's get back to the original story of these two people on the plane. Did they complain?
I think they did.
Okay. And what did the person who posted all this shit say?
Well, they're now appalled at what they've caused. They didn't see any problem with it, and I can understand why they didn't see a problem with it. They are typically reacting badly to these kinds of things. These issues always, people just go off half-cocked on both sides, and everyone's acting badly about the story. People are fighting back. Once it gets in the fighting stage, I stop paying attention because I don't care. The story to me is this idea of public versus private and social media infringing on other people's privacy when they don't know that you're doing it. Again, in public, not a problem. But these people were in private having a little moment between themselves, and you turn their private lives into literally a public spectacle. And that's where things get a little shaky.
Oh, boy.
I'll post this story up in the Loop tonight, and we can talk about it on next week's show, maybe.
I'm so confused.
I know, buddy. It'll be okay. Go have another beer.
Okay.
Folks, I've been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He has his own podcast, The Dalrymple Report. It's up on the iTunes store as we speak, and I'll be on The Dalrymple Report when he gets posted up. Not tonight because he's far too drunk. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah. Thanks, Shawn.
All right. Night, buddy.
Bye.
It's an interesting question, point of view, but it's also one of those things that people just don't know what the laws are. It's not something that you get trained on when you turn on your iPhone, that don't point it at this person, don't do that sort of thing. Monty says, I followed the story a little further only because the guy involved is kind of hot. Mosquito says, yeah, don't forget the doxing and the fact that the doxer tried to use this to get a job. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other issues. MacMan, don't always assume that. I know at least 2 nerds who are second-degree black belts in Taekwondo. But 2 nerds who are second-degree black belts in Taekwondo are far too cool for Google Glass. You know what I'm saying? Only true chicken-arm nerds would... Kidding. So yeah, that's a subject of a starting point photography segment we'll do sometime in the next few weeks about public versus private, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, and how you react to those sorts of things. So, for example, in a mall, if you walk into a mall and start taking pictures, a mall cop is legally allowed to walk up to you and say, please stop taking pictures. He can't make you delete the pictures that you've already taken. He can only ask you to stop taking pictures, taking more pictures than what you've taken. And he's also legally allowed to tell you your presence is no longer allowed here. You have to leave the mall. Otherwise, they will, be charged with trespassing. That's why you'll see in a lot of malls, right on the front door of the mall, or all the doors of the mall, it'll say photography not allowed. If the mall doesn't have that sign, walk in and take all the pictures you want until someone in authority, a mall cop, tells you to stop. And again, they can't make you delete the photos you've already taken, but they can ask you to not take any more photos. If the picture... If the mall has the sign that says no photography allowed and you start taking pictures, then they can be a little nastier about it. They still can't make you delete any pictures, but they might get a little more aggressive with asking you to leave the mall. But again, they are not legally allowed to make you delete the pictures you've already taken. All kinds of stuff with regards to privacy and what you can and can't take pictures of. And it's different depending on where you are. I've talked about this several times. Last year, Hungary banned photography of people on the street, what we call in North America street photography. If I'm walking on the street and you're walking towards me, I'm legally allowed to take your photo, but not in Hungary. That's only in North America, in Canada and in the U.S. In Hungary, you're legally not allowed to take a picture of a stranger on the street. When we go to Lisbon, Portugal, the only real issue when it comes to photography in Portugal is you're not allowed to take a picture of police or security personnel, guards, armed forces personnel, police, those kinds of things. And you're not allowed to take pictures of some government buildings. And those are obviously military installations. Those are the only things that you're not allowed to do in public in Lisbon. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to our trip to Lisbon. When we come back from this short commercial break, we're going to talk about editing your photographs. How much editing is too much editing? All that and more coming up. This is Your Mac Life.
Hello, my name is Melissa King. I'm Your Mac Life's official spokes Australian. As Shawn begins his 25th year of broadcasting on the internet, he has asked me to say a few words to you all. Send money. What? Why not? More? Okay. When you listen to Your Mac Life, you'll notice there are no ads, no commercial breaks, no 5-minute ad reads for products you've already bought or have no interest in buying. That's because Your Mac Life is entirely listener supported, and not even listener supported via a paywall or a subscription service. It's simple. If you like Your Mac Life, you can pay for it. If you don't want to pay for it, you don't have to. You can still listen. But we'd really like it if you did. On the Your Mac Life homepage at yourmaclifeshow.com, on the top left, there is a subscribe to YML box. You can send any amount you'd like each month automatically from your credit card or PayPal account. It's set for $2, $5, $10 or $15, but you can set it for any amount by clicking the donate button. The best part is you'll barely notice it. It's $2, but it makes a huge difference to us here at Your Mac Life. It means we can pay for website hosting, internet access, new computers and software to run the show on, and so much more. So, if you like Your Mac Life, please subscribe. $2 will make a tiny dent in your wallet, but when enough people subscribe, it makes a huge difference to Your Mac Life. I'm Melissa King. Thank you.
Welcome back to Your Mac Life. This is our starting point photography segment. Thank you guys very much for joining us here this Wednesday evening, or if you're tuned in via the archive, thanks very much for listening in, however you so choose to do so. Send us emails, as always, to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. If you have any questions about photography or anything that we've been talking about here on the show this evening. One of the interesting conversations that Melissa and I have had in the last little while is about editing photographs. And as I've always said, you're blocking your pretty face. There we go. I don't want you to block your face. I've always said editing photos is half the battle. Not just taking the photo, but making it look good afterwards is half the battle of photography. And so you've got to learn how to edit, whether that means editing on your iPhone or editing on your iPad or editing on your computer. I'm showing this app off to Melissa. It's called Enlight. And is it Enlight? Hang on. Enlight Quick Shot, it's called. You can find it on the App Store. Unfortunately, I can't show it to you because the App Store, because the way it's set up now, doesn't show the same thing as on your iPhone. Do a search for Enlight Quick Shot. And what it does is it takes the picture that you've taken, and in the one example that I was showing Melissa, it could remove a boring plain background, say a sky. There's actually a button for sky on the app, and insert a completely fake sky. Beautiful, dramatic, cloud-filled, spectacular sunsets, but it wasn't there when you took the photo. And it brings up a really interesting idea of when does that photograph stop being real? Now, you say it's when it stops representing what you actually saw.
Yeah.
Explain that.
Oh, well, when we were talking about it, I looked at it and I said, well, that's not real. You can't represent that as being your photograph. Yeah. And part of what I think about when I see a beautiful photograph, I think about that person's experience in seeing that, and we're using their knowledge of composition, that they took that and that it represents as closely as possible what they saw.
So you think that's what photography is supposed to be, that it's supposed to represent what you saw?
Well, as close as what you can to, because as you always say, the camera doesn't see the same as your eye.
Yes. The problem is there's a famous photograph of Salvador Dali manipulating these objects in space and in the air. So he is, again, Dali was just a Looney Tune when it came to his art. His art is way out there. But there's this famous photo of people are throwing water in the air at the same time that they've tossed a cat in the air, and there's a chair dangling over here, and there's this really weird stuff going on in the photo. But it's a composite. It's not an actual photograph. That stuff didn't all happen at the same time. They took several photos and layered them on top of each other to create this one image. It's no longer a photo, it's an image. Is that wrong?
No, that's art.
But isn't all photography art?
Well, you know when you look at that photograph that it wasn't possible to have taken that photograph like that in that moment.
Yeah, fair enough. But what about photos like the Enlight app that show a sky that wasn't there, that you can't tell the difference? I could take a picture and put in this beautiful sky and post it on Twitter, on Instagram. People go, oh, that's beautiful. What a gorgeous sky. The sky's completely fake. No one's going to know it. Is that wrong of me?
Well, you have to say it.
Why?
Because that's ethical.
Interesting.
That's like you're saying, like Robert Bateman, for example.
Yes, beautiful Canadian nature photographer.
But his art is it's like my friend Ben. He'll do an overlay or I'm sorry, like a transparency of an image that he sees, and he will do an art form of it. It's not always his. It's actually sometimes from a photograph. But then his art is a depiction of that photograph. So there's different levels of art. There's different layers and different ways of representing things.
Do all photographs, in your opinion, have to represent the moment you took the photograph?
Unless you say otherwise, I believe.
And how would you say otherwise?
You would say that you took this photograph and you adjusted the sky using the whatever app, and so it would be like an illustration or something. Monty's
got a good differences between photography for documentation purposes and photography for the purposes of creating art. I think that's the different philosophy. You believe that photography is the former, it's used for documentation, whereas others would argue it's used for creating art.
No, I don't believe in the former more than the latter. No, I believe in the both of them, but you still have to say that you didn't take this sky in this moment the way that it looks in the photograph that you're selling it as, or you've framed it or representing it as in your show or whatever. You can't say that. That means that anybody could start to do that.
Now the problem becomes, what if, not using that app, but in Photoshop or in Lightroom, I take a photo, and the photo is what it is. But the camera or the light was wrong. I didn't actually capture the sky, it's all flat. Is it okay if I add blue to the sky? If I brighten the sky up a little bit? If I make your eyes a little greener? If I make your hair a little redder? Is that okay?
I think that sort of editing is like topping up a painting that you've done.
What do you mean?
Highlighting it and adding things to it to make it emerge the way that pleases you the most, to represent something.
But doesn't that mean that there is a line that can and cannot be crossed?
I think so. Before you start saying, when I took this photograph, those big fluffy clouds weren't there, or that beautiful, magnificent sunset wasn't there. So it's not really...
But no, I'm not talking about it not being there. I'm talking about enhancing the way it looks in the photograph.
Well, that's different, because you're enhancing something that you already have existing in your image.
Okay. So if it's not in the image, I can't take a bad sky and replace it with a good sky.
Well, you can, but you need to say so, I think.
Interesting.
And
I don't know whether I agree with you or not, to be clear.
Well, I think ethically you need to say so.
Well, I think it depends on what you're trying to do with the photo afterwards. If I'm just putting it on Instagram, I'm not telling anybody that this is I don't care. I'm not trying to deceive anybody on Instagram. If I'm trying to sell that photo, perhaps then I would. If I'm trying to represent the fact that I'm a great photographer, then maybe that would be different too, because that's the other issue too.
Well, what if someone said, "Oh, Shawn, that photograph you put on Instagram, that is amazing. Wow, you are really good." What would you say? Thank you.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't say that wasn't yours? You would take
credit
for it?
Oh, you mean if I fake the sky like that? No, I would definitely say, yeah, I use this great app called N-Like Quickshot to do that.
Yeah.
But not everybody is an upstanding citizen like myself.
No, they're not.
And that's where we have issues. That's where we have problems.
I agree. You can't present it. You can't represent it like you did it.
Because I know for a fact people are getting hired. People are making money off of this stuff.
Yeah.
That's because the issue is, and this is again an interesting fine line. The issue is people will think that you're a great photographer. They won't realize that you're actually just a great editor. There's a difference there.
Well, there is. There really is. Because there's something amazing about a person taking a photograph in that moment of something so incredible, and their composition is beautiful, and the lighting and the way that, it's all in, I can't do it. I'd never be able to do it. So there's something incredible about that.
Monty has a question from Melissa. Why? What element of society implies the ethical requirement to disclose when you've manipulated an image past a certain point?
Well, I would think that it's your own ethics. It's your inner ethics. You can't, if it's just on Instagram, that's fine.
No.
I get it. But if you are doing a photography show, then I think it's different. I think there's ethics within the world of art.
Yes.
You can't copy someone else's art or manipulate someone else's art to make it better unless you say so.
No, yeah, you actually can.
Yeah, you can, but you have to say so. You have to say that you did that.
Here's an example. What if I took one of Picasso's paintings, cut it up, then rearranged the faces so they were proper, and then posted that as my artwork? That's legal.
Yes, it is, but you'd have to say, adjusted from Picasso's whatever.
I would not legally have to say that.
Well,
because I've created new art. It's derivative of Picasso's work, but I don't have to say that.
But the pieces of it were done by Picasso.
Doesn't matter. When I create the new Picasso, it's mine. I created it. Even though I used his ideas, you could actually use the actual physical painting.
That's what I mean. You could use his painting.
And it would still be considered your work. It would be derivative, derived from Picasso's, but it's still your art. that you don't have to disclose. Hey, I
No.
used an old Picasso I found in the garage.
But people would look at it and go,
Yeah,
well,
sure.
I know that's
I'm just
Picasso.
using that as an extreme example.
I'm not saying that it's illegal, but I think that...
it's Monty says, interesting discussion. And it is definitely a discussion that photographers have had over the years. Now, and I'm glad that Monty pointed out the thing about documentation versus art. If you are representing the photo as a factual moment in time, in other words, if you are a photojournalist.
If you're a photojournalist, that's what
completely
I was
different
thinking.
rules.
It is.
Completely different rules. Every reputable photojournalism class, course, organization, the Washington Post, New York Times, whoever it might be, say you are not allowed to manipulate your photo.
No.
You can crop it in a certain way, but not to deceive. You can do a little bit of highlighting of things, but again, not to deceive. There was the classic case back in the day of the O.J. Simpson trial. Time magazine posted a picture of O.J. Simpson on the front cover of Time magazine, and they significantly changed the color of his skin, made him much, much darker than what he was in real life. And they got in a lot of trouble for that because they wanted to show the menace of O.J. Simpson. I get that, but you're not allowed to do that in photography. In news journalism, in photojournalism, the photograph must represent what it is that you shot.
Yes, I would hope so.
If that photo was in an art gallery and you wanted to show the menace of OJ, sure, you can make it as black as you want.
Yes.
But this was in a news story. You're not allowed to manipulate news stories.
Yes.
So I think how you want to represent it becomes very, very important. What your end result is, what you want people to think about is important. If I use this Enlight app, and I'll post examples of it later on. If I use this Enlight app to completely blow up the sky and put in a whole new pretty cloud-filled sky and post this on Instagram and have people say, pretty picture, I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to sell it. I'm not trying to represent it as anything other than an image, art that I've created. Now, because it's me, I would say I use Enlight's quick shot to create this. I would even post a before and after, but that's me.
But if you're doing it to promote yourself as a photographer, then it's wrong.
That's right. I agree. And the next thing that brings up is when you look at these kind of images, keep this in mind, that there are apps out there. Again, this Enlight, you can't see it on, screw you, Apple. You can't see it on your Mac, but go to the App Store, do a search for Enlight Quick Shot, and look at the first video example they show. It's an old World War II, I think it's a B-52 bomber. And look at what they do to that image, of the background of that image. It completely changes the image. The image starts off as just an average everyday photo that anybody would take. And then as they add layers to it, as they add color, as they add drama to the image, it becomes completely different. And that's where things get really interesting, is at what point do you have to stop doing it that way? Good discussion. MacMan was talking about British Airways is drunk. They're charging $50 more for basic economy rather than normal economy. He's talking about the flights to the UK and to Lisbon. Don't forget, MacMan, I've already posted up on the website. You can buy the Eventbrite tickets now. If folks are interested in the Lisbon trip, you can actually go to Eventbrite, buy the ticket. Full money back guarantee before November 1st. October 31st at midnight, I keep it. But up until then, you can buy the ticket. And it's $100 off up until October 31st, too. I know I've gotten a couple emails from folks saying, what's the hotel? We haven't found the hotel yet, but it will be a nice hotel. I'm too snobby to stay in a dive. We ain't staying in a hostel. We're not staying in a little scuzzy place that's 4 miles outside of town. It's going to be in the downtown area. Melissa found a beautiful convent.
An old convent
that looks to be about 2 or 3 blocks away from the river in a really interesting location. That I've sent them an email and asked them if they can give us a deal. That's probably the location we'll go to. But yeah, don't worry. The hotels that we pick will be very, very nice hotels. Because if nothing else, I need room. I need room to teach the classes. The other thing we found, and this is really exciting, we talked on last week's show the concerns I have about renting a car and driving to Sintra and then Cabo de Roca. Cabo de Roca is a fascinating place. It's the westernmost spot. You can't get further west on the continent of Eurasia than Cabo de Roca, which is really just kind of cool. And literally when you look west, you'll see America. France covers Canada, but it'll be America when you look directly west. And we're going to go there for a sunset shoot. I want to be there to get the sun setting in the Atlantic over North America. I think it would just be kind of a cool thing. But the problem was, the easy way to do that is to rent a car there. But I was concerned that, without the right insurance, if something, God forbid, happened, people would sue me. I don't want that, because then I have to kill you. And we don't want that either. But there is a car service that'll do that for us. They'll drive us to Sintra, and then from Sintra, drive us to Cabo de Roca, and then back to Lisbon for a day trip. I think that's probably the way. It's a little more expensive, but it certainly makes me feel better, and probably would make other people feel better too, and have less concern over the legalities of it and the insurance of things.
I think we talked about a waiver, MacMan, but a waiver I think only goes so far legally. It can be.
Yeah, Monty. Yes, it is Enlight from Light Tricks. Enlight Quick Shot is the app. MacMan says take the train. There is no train, MacMan, that goes from Sintra to Cabo de Roca. There is a train that goes from Lisbon to Sintra, but not from Sintra to Cabo de Roca, and that's where we want to go is Cabo de Roca. And this company does the whole thing. There's I think it's maximum 10 people.
I think
so. That would be our entire
10.
group. 10 people, so we won't be with a bunch of strangers. We're not going to be going on a big old
I don't want to
Greyhound
go
bus.
I can't do the coach.
No, I'm not doing the big bus coach
it's
thing.
Not,
no.
Yeah.
So they would pick us up first thing in the morning from the hotel. We go to Sintra for the afternoon, for the morning, and then early afternoon, and then from Sintra we'd hop back on the coach and go to Cabo de Roca for the sunset thing, which I think would just be so much fun. So again, you can buy the tickets now. You can buy the Starting Point Photography. Lock that in now. We what was the other thing? There was another thing I wanted to say about that. I've forgotten what it is. Oh, as a reminder, the nice folks at Lonely Planet are allowing us to, starting September, once a month, we're going to be giving away a copy of one of their Lonely Planet guides to anywhere in the world. Not just the Lonely Planet guide to Lisbon, but if you win and you're not going to Lisbon with us, you can get it for whatever city you're going to go to.
Yeah, well, MacMan's going to different places.
Yeah, that's right. He said he was going to London.
And Paris.
If he won, he could get one that covered London for him.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and MacMan, the waiver thing is, I just don't want to get into it.
No.
I'd feel much better if we just said, you know what, here's a whole different company.
Well, we have a native guide, a guy that would be...
Yes, there's that too.
There's
that too.
Yeah. Which is good. You get a lot of knowledge from those
We're trying
guys.
to convince Marcus Mendez from Brazil to come with us. Because he'll be our...
Wow.
But someone mentioned that on Twitter too. There's no real concern about language in Lisbon. The areas we're going to be going in, typical of most of Europe, a lot of people in Europe speak English. It's taught in classes much more so than it is here in North America. A lot of folks, and then when you get to the tourist areas, everyone speaks English in the touristy type areas. So there's no issues with that. You can use an app to learn the basics. Well, I know we will. How to say hello and good morning and that kind of stuff. Duolingo is great for that. There's other apps out there that will help. There's also translation apps you can get on your phone that will do live translations for you. So, but the language will not be a barrier for us. Don't worry too much about that. Yeah, MacMan says, I thought about doing the train from London to Lisbon, but it was 2 times the cost of flying and took a full day. That's insane. I could get taking a full day to do it, but not at twice the cost of flying.
No, yeah.
I love trains.
Oh, I love trains.
And I love European trains because there's so many but there's so many countries all through Europe that you can get to very easily by train. But if the cost would be more than flying, then no, it's not.
No, just fly.
It's just fly.
Yes.
Oh, I got the funniest spam email today. I got to share this with you guys. I got an email from Meryl Chira, which is undoubtedly not their correct name. It seems that this word is your password. You don't know me and you're probably thinking, why are you getting this email, correct? Let me tell you, I placed a malware on adult video porn websites, and guess what? You visited this site to experience fun. You know what I mean. While you were watching video clips, your web browser initiated working as a RDP, a remote-controlled desktop, that has a keylogger which gave me accessibility to your display screen and also webcam. Right after that, my software collected your entire contacts from your messenger, social networks, and email. What did I do? I created a double-screen video. The first part displays the videos you were watching. You've got nice taste, by the way. And second part displays the recording of your webcam. What should you do? Well, I believe $2,900 is a reasonable price for our little secret. You make the payment by Bitcoin, and then he gives a Bitcoin address. Note, you have 1 day to make the payment. I have a special pixel in this email, and at this moment I know that you read through this email. If I don't receive the Bitcoins, I definitely will send your video recording to all of your contacts, including members of your family, co-workers, and so forth. However, if I receive the payment, I will destroy the video immediately.
Oh my gosh.
If you want to have evidence, reply with yes, and I'll send your video to 5 of your friends. It's a non-negotiable offer, therefore please do not waste my personal time and yours by responding to this email.
Wow. So Monty said he got the same one.
Same one what?
Monty says, Shawn King, I've gotten that same spam message.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, Monty, and you tell me this, is the word that they say your password actually your password? Because for me it is.
I thought you used
I do. It's a password I used many, many years ago. I don't use anymore. Because I use 1Password.
No.
And 1Password does a whole bunch of different passwords. This was a word that I used probably 10 years ago as a password. So one of the websites that I was on, not a porn website, by the way, if only, I've gone to porn websites. I don't sign up for them. I don't give them my email address and passwords.
Yeah, really.
So
reply with a dick pic.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So they would have, some website that I'd used 10 years ago got hacked, lost their user list, and so they've done this. The thing for me is, the other reason I know this is not true is because they sent it to my Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com web email address.
Yes.
I don't use that email address for signing up on websites.
No.
For anything.
No.
I use a separate email address for that.
Yeah.
The other thing is they say that your web browser initiated working as a remote-controlled desktop that has a keylogger. You can't do that on the Macintosh. Unless he at some point had physical access to my computer and installed that software. You can't do it remotely on the Macintosh. So there's a bunch of things in here that make me, as a knowledgeable user, know this is fake. And last but not least, even if all of this was real,
would you care?
I don't care.
No.
It means 5 of you are getting porn.
Oh, whatever.
It doesn't matter.
And he says good taste in porn.
He
so
says
that's
that
good.
too. But the thing is, if for no other reason that I know the porn that I have watched in the past is perfectly vanilla. It's there's no small children involved or weird things. I'm not worried about it.
Such an elaborate message.
I'll show my wife porn. The porn
Yeah.
that I watch, because it's not bad. It's just porn. It's average everyday porn.
So you ignore it.
I completely ignore it. Yeah, you don't respond to these things. You just completely ignore it. Nothing bad's going to happen to anyone who gets this email. But it's very scary.
It's terrifying.
If you don't know these kinds of things and you've gone to porn websites, which is most men,
Yes.
this could be very scary for you. And it's the reason why you use different passwords for different websites. Is because
Mo's gone off because I was going to go, hey, honey, because Mo said goodbye. We talked about this last week.
What do you mean?
Security and passwords.
Oh, yes, exactly. Monty, the message intrigued me from a security perspective, so I copied it to an isolated lab machine, looked through it very closely to see if there was anything embedded in it that would tell the sender that it had been opened. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. I've got my email client so it turns off that kind of content. Because what happens is, you can do that. When you get sent an email, the graphic in it can report back to the sender that this email had been opened.
Right, yes.
But I've got my email client, so none of that visual content, no graphics pop up. I have to click on it to say, send me the graphics, because it's just faster that way. And there's 99.9% of the time, the graphics that anyone sends me via email on press releases and that kind of stuff, I don't frickin' want to see anyway. So, no, there's nothing embedded in this. But most people don't know that. It sounds plausible. It sounds like it might be a real thing. There was one other thing that made this thing be completely...
$2,900. That's a funny... $2,900.
And the other thing is, and this is sad but true, if I receive the payment, I will destroy the video immediately. No, they won't. They will not.
No.
Because what they do is that in another if this was real, in another 3 months, they'd say, send me more money. And you would keep sending them money because the video is video. They're never going to delete it.
Yeah.
So you just absolutely ignore it.
You'd be stuck.
Yeah. So I just want to let folks know, if you got something like that, don't worry about it. It's not going to be an issue whatsoever. So don't be afraid. I think that's it. I think, yes, we are done for the night. Thank you guys very much for joining us. There was something else. I've forgotten what it is, but I'm sure I'll remember after I turn off all this equipment. I want to say thanks, as always, to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. His podcast, the Dalrymple Report, is available up on the iTunes store. And I haven't asked this in a while. If you wouldn't mind, could you do a review of Your Mac Life on the iTunes store? Our last review was from 5 years ago.
Oh.
Because I haven't asked for reviews. So if you guys wouldn't mind, somebody, bunch of you, go to the iTunes store and just leave a review of Your Mac Life. Let folks know what you think about the show. Yeah, I'd appreciate that if you did that. Thank you guys very much for being tuned in live or listening in via the archive. As always, send us emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Don't forget, Melissa and I have another podcast called Don't Listen to Us, also available on the iTunes store. It's actually quite good. I enjoy it. She's on it, so you got to listen to it. If you like that voice, you got to listen to this, because this is good. This is good stuff. Okay, that's it. As always, I've been Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
And you've been listening to Your Mac Life. Thanks very much, folks. Hopefully you all of our American friends had a great holiday weekend. Everyone is still recovering, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks very much. See ya.
Bye.